interesting ride to get this far in 25 years. So I have an official statement to make, and we'll have a dialogue thereafter. Good morning. I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Craig Hosland. I'm a registered home inspector with CAPI since 1999 and CAPI BC's president. I'd also like to introduce members of our executive, Helen Barton, our executive director, Vince Burnett, vice president, and Gary, our secretary. Good morning. And esteemed guests and other members, such as one of our originals, Bill Clayton. Welcome, and I hope that you all have copies of the documentation today. And we'll go over that in just a minute. First, as president of CAPI BC, I would like to say how pleased I am to represent BC's largest home inspector group in dialoguing with our friends, clients, and future customers. CAPI BC Standard of Practice is more than a document, more than a scope of work. It's a culmination of years of intense dialogue with our members and stakeholders of what home buyers need and want in the way of a service, with the expectations and pricing constraints set by our clients and the industry at large. Prior to licensing in 2009, any person could be a home inspector and deliver whatever they wanted in the way of a service. Many unsuspecting home buyers were given weak and poor service because they chose price, not knowing anything else. 25 years ago, a group of home inspectors in BC got together and said enough was enough. The customer deserves better. The professional deserves a voice. The professional deserves higher uniform standards that home buyers in BC could rely on. Home inspection is a professional service, not a bartered product based on lowest price. CAPI BC was born on the backs of a few diligent professionals who wanted to develop a professional environment where the home inspector, home buyer, client knew what they were getting. They adopted the ASHI standard, the American Society of Home Inspector standard, along with best industry practices. This group grew from a few professionals into an organization of 300 professionals that bear the CAPI BC name. In 2011, CAPI Canada took on a daunting task to make the standard Canadian, and after a cross-Canada discourse, the 2012 CAPI Standard of Practice was adopted. To this, I am proud to stand on their shoulders today and introduce our Standard of Practice with your input. It's now time to start an ongoing dialogue with our stakeholders that will help to enhance the profession and make the CAPI BC Standard of Practice more relevant to all who practice home inspection and work with home inspectors professionally. You see, the battle for home inspection as a profession continues. And with CAPI BC as the voice of the profession, we will strive to continue this fight. A fight to ensure the home buyers of BC are protected from bad inspection practices. Thank you for coming today. What you have in your package is an introductory document and the standards of practice themselves. In the review document, you can see that we've broken it down into purpose and scope, history, which I've given you a little bit of, the CAPI standards of practice, history of home inspection in British Columbia, who CAPI is and who CAPI BC is. Our goal over the next few months is to receive comments and observations with regards to the standard of practice and how it functions for home buyers, how it functions for the professions that are stakeholders in our industry, and to our friends. This input will ensure that the CAPI standard of practice is considered a legitimate standard within the industry. Our goal is to provide a uniform standard for the industry, for home buyers, here in British Columbia and across Canada. So with that, I will take any questions, and I will offer observations as I can as president. We have several professionals in the room who can answer standard of practice questions as well. I would just like to refer you to the standards of practice. It's dated 2012. It was decided, since it was a new standard, although essentially adopted from the ASHI standards of practice with their permission, modifications were made through cross-Canada review through members and stakeholders, that we had decided that in 2 years there would be another review. Because usually when you roll out something, you don't always get it absolutely the way that you want it to be. So that's why we're having this review in 2014. Likely the next review will be in 5 years. Not unlike the National Building Code, it's important to review the standards if there are any changes in the industry, if there's any changes in the profession, if there's any smarter, logical language, we want to use it. And again, it's an opportunity for the public and stakeholders to input on the standard of practice to ensure that, that we have the best possible product. That's it for the official part. So considering the number of people that have arrived, maybe we can just go into an informal discussion. What were and international interest issues? Same as CAPI. We have an office in Ottawa, we have a full-time staff. That full-time staff and members from each of the constituent associations, 7 provincial and regional constituent associations across Canada, where we meet and we disseminate issues of a national level. It was decided at that level it would be best to generate the first Canadian standard of practice. And from there, the provinces would have the opportunity of adopting additional elements depending on region and condition. So for example, the construction, maintenance, renovation conditions in Vancouver might be different than Halifax, certainly are different than Yellowknife. And not wanting to have a quietly dissimilar documentation process, we wanted to at least ensure that there was an opportunity for the provinces to add to the requirements. And so far, there's very little of that. We're finding that across Canada, we have a common theme, and that is from an inspection perspective, to have a thorough inspection, to have it conducted in a standard way, so that a CAPI BC member moving from Halifax or Truro or Quebec City to Vancouver can commence and continue their profession fairly quickly. And the cross-border interprovincial mobility agreement that CAPI has signed with its constituent associations is also there to demonstrate that we have a cross-Canada perspective and that we meet government criteria from province to province. I'm starting to run out of things to say. And as I had noted, a rather brilliant move by less than a dozen people 25 years ago, home inspectors, recognizing the need for a common standard, recognizing the need to develop the roots for a profession. We have, in a concerted effort since then,
have been presenting the case that home inspection is as important as, count them, you know, any technology, any technological provision, engineering, architecture, accounting, that requires a rigorous and active review and involvement in the industry to make it better. We just recognize, as you do in your profession, we recognize what's wrong, and who better to fix it except for us. In 2009, what we thought was the silver bullet, that regulation came in place, that home inspectors had to be licensed to meet a minimum standard, would be the stepping stone for professionalism. Unfortunately, it's gone the other way. And that is, under the terms in which we were regulated, we were put under a consumer protection advocate organization, which is important. Absolutely, if a consumer has a problem, they should have a right of recourse. The thing is we already had that system in place, rights of recourse, that if somebody had a complaint against a CAPI home inspector, it would be dealt with professionally. But what also came with it was an infrastructure and a process that was not aligned with what our focus is, and that is making the industry better. The consumer protection wants to see better home inspectors, and the regulatory process is there to catch those where somebody can expose them in a deliberate way. But where there isn't any focus, where there's a big void, is dealing with industry issues. And so we're very hopeful in the presentations that we've made to Minister Coleman and to his working group, the policy people in housing, some very intelligent people, that that they will recognize that we need more focus on our industry by the industry. And so we proposed that instead of taking issues to consumer protection who can't deal with them, and they've made it very clear in their own communications that they don't have duties assigned to them to deal with these things. Like, for example, to what degree of education is necessary to become licensed? How much continuing education is required? What are the basis of competency for the individual? And you both deal with that. But you have the opportunity to tweak the mechanism that produces the inspector, where in our case there are 4 licensing entities. We're one of them. We comprise 60% of the industry, and we've had to reduce, really unhappily reduce some of our expectations of new applicants, because we were easily losing them in a competitive environment to the next guy. We had to lower our standards to meet the standards of the industry, and that really hurts, because, well, everybody in this room, we've been at it for years and years and years, and I think even between the 4 of us that are here, we've probably done 50,000 home inspections, and we just know intrinsically what makes a good home inspector, and what keeps a good home inspector, and what keeps the deliverable at a high quality. And within our own group of 300 home inspectors, if one doesn't cut it, we're on them, and we're working with them. We're not kicking them out. Well, we will kick them out, but putting in the effort to train them up to what our expectations are, and then to increase our standards, increase our expectations of our inspectors. It's in our DNA. And for now 5 years, we've been dealing with the anxiety that we're not keeping our own internal expectations, because in a competitive environment, an applicant can knock on 4 doors now. And they'll go, but interestingly, I think you can help me with this, Helen, but I would say probably 70% or 80% of the people that knock on our door end up becoming a CAPI member because they've decided that they want a level of professionalism and they want a level of competency, and they're impressed with the expectations within this organization. So the logic of it works. But as before licensing, we're talking about 20% of the home inspections that are provided out there, or home inspectors that are licensed, that don't achieve a qualifying standard, in our opinion. So we take this to consumer protection and they say, well, what's acceptable? You know, maybe you're delivering a Cadillac and we don't quite want that. Or it's not that we don't want it, it's maybe the industry doesn't want it. Maybe the industry wants something different. And so they accepted, finally they accepted at least the minimum of the 4 associations, the minimum standards. Well, that just dropped us down a peg or 2. And then, to make it even worse, there's only one category of licensing. And that is, you're either licensed or you're not. So where before, at least the public knew that it was buyer beware out there and that they had to do their homework, the government system says they're licensed, therefore they are. And you don't need to worry about whether they're competent or not, because they are. It just doesn't work that way. Life doesn't work that way. So when I read the Real Estate Council's bio about the importance of self-regulation, the importance of managing our own profession because we are competent to do that. And we have no problems with an overseeing entity. We have no problems developing policy and bringing it to a director. Ministry of Housing, Ministry of Justice. We have no problems with taking it and arguing the point that this change needs to be made. But what's important is we're involved in the decision-making process. And what we proposed to Minister Coleman is an industry board. And that industry board deliberates, and the member of all 4 associations are on it, plus there'll be a member of the Ministry of Justice and the Ministry of Housing, and an outside professional. Maybe a lawyer, maybe not a lawyer, maybe an engineer, maybe an architect, maybe a building official, maybe a real estate official, maybe also have a real estate. We're talking about stakeholders in the industry that come together, and if we can't sell to that board that this change needs to be made, then we need to rethink what we want. But at least it's a forum where, as a profession, we can argue and debate and challenge and come up with a solution. What's interesting right now